Chrisean Rock just turned 26 years old. And y'all, the way this woman is living right now is beyond sad. We talking about a girl who went from being broke in Baltimore to being a reality TV millionaire, to fighting on undercard boxing shows just to keep the lights on. And the wildest part of this whole story, Blueface himself came out on social media saying her son isn't even his, and that the real father is a man named Ronnie, the same Ronnie Doe who tragically lost his life in the middle of all this paternity chaos. Her family fired right back, calling that claim a flat-out lie. So buckle up, because by the end of this video, you're gonna understand exactly how a girl who had the world in her hands ended up here at 26, still fighting, literally, just to survive. Yo, what's good, fam? We're about to dive deep into one of the most heartbreaking comeback or collapse stories in the culture right now. Chrisean Rock, the girl from Baddies, the girl from Crazy in Love. The girl half of y'all watched grow a whole baby on camera while arguing with her on-again, off-again man. She just hit 26, and instead of celebrating a glow-up, a lot of people online are looking at her life right now and just shaking their heads. Real talk, before we get into this, let me keep it 100 with y'all. There's a lot of rumors floating around about her son, about who's really the father, about what happened to the men in her life. We about to separate the fact from the internet noise. And trust me, the real story is wild enough without us having to make anything up. Let's go all the way back, because you can't understand where Chrisean Rock is now without understanding where she came from. Her government name is Chrisean Eugenia Malone, born March 14th, the year 2000, out in West Baltimore, Maryland. Now check this. She ain't grow up as an only child getting all the attention. This girl is one of 12 children. 12. Picture that household for a second. Her father was in and out of the prison system for a huge chunk of her childhood, so there wasn't always a man around to hold things down. And her mother was dealing with her own struggles with addiction, which meant the stability a lot of us take for granted just wasn't there for young Chrisean. Multiple reports say she experienced stretches of homelessness growing up, bouncing around trying to find ground to stand on as a kid. That's not a small thing. That's the kind of upbringing that either breaks a person or it builds something in them that the rest of the world can't touch. And what got built in Chrisean was a fighter. Literally. She found track and field, and she was nice with it. Talking Junior Olympics level nice. Her own sister has said on camera that Chrisean on the track is a beast, and she meant that as the highest compliment. That athletic talent actually opened the door for her. She had the chance to attend a Division I school off her speed alone. She ended up out in California at Santa Monica College, still running track, still grinding, but inside her, music was calling. She wasn't trying to just be known for running fast. She wanted bars. She wanted a mic. So somewhere in the middle of chasing one dream, she started building another one, posting content, building a following, putting out music under different names before the world knew her as Chrisean Rock. Now, for those of y'all who haven't been keeping up since the early days, let me give you the cultural translation real quick. Chrisean started putting herself out there on social media all the way back around 2015. Just regular pictures, modeling content, swimwear, streetwear, the everyday hustle of trying to build a following before anybody knew her name. That's the grind a lot of these internet personalities go through that fans never see. By the time she landed a spot on Zeus Network's Baddies, she already had years of building her own brand brick by brick. Baddies itself became one of the network's biggest franchises, running multiple seasons, and Chrisean quickly became one of the most talked about personalities on the entire show. Loud, unpredictable, and impossible to ignore. That's the foundation she was standing on before Blueface ever entered the picture. She wasn't some random girl who got discovered out of nowhere. She had already put in work to become a known name in this industry. Now let's talk about how she ended up tangled up with Blueface, because this is where the story really takes off. His real name is Jonathan Porter, the rapper known for Thotiana, already a known name in the industry with his own wild reputation. Now, for people who haven't been keeping up with him, Blueface had already built a name for himself as one of the most unpredictable, controversial figures in hip-hop, known just as much for his chaotic personal life and his offbeat flow as he was for his music. So when these two crossed paths, it wasn't exactly two calm, low-key people meeting. It was two of the most chaotic personalities in the culture colliding at the same time. And the streets already knew that combination was going to be must-watch television. The two of them connected around June of 2022. And at first, this wasn't a love story. At first, this was a business move. Chrisean came into Blueface's world as his artist. He saw something in her, that raw, unfiltered energy, that I don't care what y'all think attitude, and he wanted to put it to work. But here's where it gets real. Working that close with somebody, in that environment, things don't always stay professional. The chemistry between them shifted from artist and mentor into something way more complicated, way more public, and honestly, way more volatile than either of them probably expected. Because let's be clear, this wasn't a quiet, behind closed doors relationship. Just a couple months into them being public, in August of 2022, video surfaced of the two of them in a full-on physical altercation in the middle of Hollywood Boulevard. Throwing hands, wrestling on the ground, the whole nine. Blueface later said the fight kicked off because he went through her phone and didn't like what he found. This was the blueprint for what their relationship would become. Public, chaotic, and constantly under a microscope. But instead of that being the end of it, it became the beginning of a brand, because the streets and eventually all of America could not stop watching. That's when the reality TV machine kicked into gear. Chrisean had already built a presence on Zeus Network show Baddies, which became one of the network's biggest hits. But then she and Blueface got their own spin-off, Blueface and Chrisean Crazy in Love, and that show turned their relationship into a full-blown business. Every fight, every makeup, every secret, every accusation, all of it became content, and content was money, real money. At one point during an argument that got filmed for the show, Blueface flat out told her she didn't even bring in $10 million during her last round of paydays. And the way he said it, it wasn't a compliment, it was a complaint. Like 10 million wasn't enough. Let that sink in. The number being thrown around in casual arguments on this show was 8 figures. This girl who used to be homeless as a kid in Baltimore was now living a life where missing $10 million in a payday cycle was something to be mad about. That's the part outsiders never really understood about this couple. From the outside, all people saw was the screaming matches, the petty arguments, the public drama. But behind that drama was an entire economy. Appearance fees, brand deals, the show's own paycheck, merchandise, all of it tied directly to how loud and chaotic their relationship looked on camera. The more they fought, the more clips went viral, and the more clips went viral, the more money flowed in. It's a messed up cycle if you really think about it. The worse things got between them privately, the better things looked for them financially. And Chrisean leaned all the way into that energy, posting about her freedom, bragging at times that she felt like she controlled the direction of Baddies itself because of how much attention she pulled toward the show. For a minute, it really did look like this girl from West Baltimore had cracked the code on turning chaos into currency. But money on camera and stability in real life are two completely different things. And that gap is exactly where Chrisean's story starts to turn. See, around March of 2023, she announced she was pregnant. And instead of that being a moment where the chaos calmed down, it became another storyline for the show. Footage started surfacing of her smoking while visibly pregnant, blowing smoke during arguments with Blueface that were airing on national television. This sparked a real serious backlash. We talking think pieces, social media dragging her for days, people bringing up the CDC's warnings about marijuana use during pregnancy. Some folks online even speculating that Child Protective Services could get involved once the baby arrived. Blueface, for his part, publicly defended her, saying plenty of women smoked through their pregnancies without issues. But the damage to her public image was already done. And it wasn't the only time cameras caught her doing it. This happened on more than one episode, which only fed the fire. On September 3rd, 2023, she gave birth to a baby boy, and true to form for this couple, she streamed the actual delivery live on Instagram for the world to see. They named him after her, Chrisean Jesus Jr. And for a hot minute, it looked like maybe, just maybe, becoming parents would settle things down between her and Blueface. Y'all already know that's not how this story goes, because here's where it gets real messy real fast. Around the time the baby was born, Blueface started publicly expressing doubts that the child was even his. A DNA test aired on the show that appeared to confirm he was the father, which seemed to put the rumors to rest. But then, just a few months later, in December of 2023, Blueface dropped a bombshell on social media, claiming he secretly took another DNA test on his own, and that this one came back showing he was not the father after all. He posted about it publicly, called it a bittersweet feeling, and the internet exploded. Chrisean fired back, calling him out for the way he was handling it, and the back and forth between them became its own ongoing soap opera that fans followed religiously. Let me break it down for y'all, because following this DNA saga is honestly like trying to follow a courtroom drama with no judge. First test, on camera, said he's the father. Second test, that he claims he took on his own and never showed anybody the actual paperwork for, supposedly said he's not the father. Fans online started picking the story apart piece by piece, pointing out he never released real documentation for that second test, just his word and a couple of tweets. But Chrisean wasn't exactly making it easy to trust her either, going live to vent instead of settling things with hard proof of her own at that point. So now you got two people, both with their own credibility problems, both throwing accusations in public, and a baby boy stuck right in the middle of all of it with no say in any of it. Now, in the hood, we know relationships get complicated, especially when there's money, fame, and trust issues all mixed together. But this situation got even more layered when a man named Chrisean Rock, who went by Ronnie Doe, entered the picture publicly in October of 2024. Ronnie took to Instagram claiming that he, not Blueface, could actually be the biological father, saying he and Chrisean had been involved with each other around the time she got pregnant. He even claimed he was there the day the baby was born, saying he saw the child right when he came out the hospital and that he knew exactly who cut the umbilical cord. He publicly demanded his own DNA test, said he wanted the chance to step up and be a real father if it turned out the child was his. The situation escalated even further in November of 2024 when Ronnie confronted Chrisean in person at a mall. A confrontation serious enough that police had to get involved. By December of 2024, Ronnie was still pushing the issue publicly, saying he had filed for a legal paternity test and accusing Chrisean of dodging the process. For months, this paternity question hung over her son's life like a cloud. 3 adults, 1 little boy, and a public that couldn't agree on who was telling the truth. While all of this personal drama was unfolding, Chrisean's professional life and her bank account were taking hits too. Blueface had his own serious legal troubles connected to a 2022 shooting incident out in Las Vegas, and a probation violation tied to that case eventually landed him behind bars. With her main source of reality TV income, the joint show with Blueface, no longer the machine it used to be, and with a newborn at home, the bookings that used to come easy started drying up. The brand that made millions when it was Blueface and Chrisean wasn't pulling the same weight when it was just Chrisean trying to hold it down solo with a baby on her hip. Think about what that actually means day to day for somebody. When you're part of a couple's brand, every appearance, every club booking, every paid post comes from the strength of that us against the world storyline fans were obsessed with. The second that storyline loses its other half because one person is sitting in a cell, the phone calls from promoters start slowing down. Venues that used to pay top dollar to have Blueface and Chrisean on a flyer didn't have the same hunger for just Chrisean, especially with a newborn limiting how much she could even travel and perform in the first place. That's the part of fame nobody warns these reality stars about. The brand can disappear faster than it showed up, and the bills don't pause just because the relationship that built your income did. And Chrisean's own legal situation didn't help her image or her income either. In November of 2023, she got into a real altercation at a Tamar Braxton show in downtown LA, striking a dancer named James Wright hard enough, according to the lawsuit he filed, to break 2 of his teeth. She ended up pleading no contest to assault charges and was sentenced to 30 days in jail, plus a year of probation that kept her away from him in that venue. On top of that, there were reports she was also being looked at on a fugitive warrant out of Oklahoma. So picture this: new mother, maternity drama swirling, ex going to prison, her own jail sentence on the books, and the steady reality TV income that used to flow and starting to slow to a trickle. That's the kind of pressure that would break most people. The real kicker though, and this is the part of the story that turned tragic, came in February of 2025. Ronnie Doe, the man who had spent months publicly claiming he might be the real father of Chrisean's son, was shot and killed in Severn, Maryland. Authorities ruled it a homicide, and at the time, no suspect had been publicly named. This was a real young man's life gone in the middle of a public paternity dispute that had played out across social media for months. Investigators called it a targeted shooting, and as of this video, the case is still being looked into. That's a real family out there grieving a real loss, and it's important we don't lose sight of that in the middle of all this internet drama. And just days after his death, Chrisean posted what she said was a paternity test on her son's own Instagram account, claiming it proved once and for all that Blueface was the biological father. Now, instead of that bringing closure, it brought even more controversy. People online immediately questioned the timing of the post, wondering why she would share it right after Ronnie's passing instead of months earlier when he was alive and demanding answers. Others picked apart the document itself, pointing out details that made them question whether it was even legitimate, with some folks claiming the website listed on the paperwork suggested the test wasn't even finished processing. Some accused her of straight up faking the whole thing just to put the rumors to rest at the most convenient possible moment. So even in death, this young man's claim was still tangled up in doubt, and Chrisean was facing a wave of criticism for how and when she chose to address it, with a lot of people online saying the same thing. Why post that proof now when he can't even respond to it anymore? You would think that posting a DNA test would have finally ended the paternity conversation for good. It did not, because here's the thing about this situation. Blueface himself kept flip-flopping on the issue, even after that test went public. Following his eventual release from custody in 2025, there were moments where he publicly called the boy his son, seemingly accepting it. But then, this past March, Blueface dropped the loudest bombshell of the whole saga. He got on social media and straight up said the boy is not his biological son, naming Ronnie directly as the real father and sending his condolences to him, saying he can't keep playing a role that doesn't feel right when he's already a present father to his other kids. That post alone pulled in millions of views in less than a day. Chrisean fired back, but not by addressing the paternity claim directly. Instead, she called him out for going on a live stream and calling her and her son dumb. It was her own sister who really went at it, flat out calling Ronnie a liar, saying she was the one in that delivery room and nobody else, and that Ronnie's whole story was something he wished was true. So even now in 2026, you got Blueface naming a deceased man as the real father on a platform with millions of eyes watching. And you got Chrisean's own family calling that claim a straight up lie. And still, to this day, there's no independently confirmed test that settles it either way. The math still wasn't mathing for a lot of fans, and the cycle just kept spinning. By early 2026, the relationship that started as an artist and her mentor, that turned into a viral reality TV brand worth millions, that survived street fights, jail time, and a paternity scandal that touched the man's tragic death. That relationship was finally officially over. Chrisean Rock and Blueface had split for good. No more on again, off again. No more joint shows. And for a woman who built her entire public identity around that chaotic partnership, that left a serious question hanging in the air. What does Chrisean Rock do now? With no Blueface, no steady show income, a young son to raise, a damaged public image, and bills that don't care about any of that drama. The real kicker is what she chose to do next. And honestly, fam, this is the part of her story that shows there might be a fighter underneath all that chaos in more ways than one. Chrisean went and signed an actual professional boxing deal with promoter Damon Feldman's organization, putting her name on the dotted line in January of 2026. She started training seriously under coach Calvin Ford out in Baltimore, the same legendary trainer who helped build world champion Gervonta Tank Davis from the ground up. Think about that contrast for a second. From being known for street fights with Blueface caught on shaky cell phone video, to training under one of the most respected boxing coaches in the sport. She even reportedly had a viral sparring session with Ryan Garcia that pushed her to take the sport seriously instead of treating it like just a side hustle. In April of 2026, she stepped into the ring for her official pro debut at Harrah's Casino in Philadelphia, fighting under the name Holy Hands on a card that also featured Floyd Mayweather's sister making her own debut. Reports said over 5,000 women had reached out wanting a shot at fighting her, and out of all of them, Zenith Zion got the call. The fight didn't start perfect for Chrisean. She actually had to rise up off the canvas during the bout, but she fought her way to a split decision win in her very first sanctioned match. For a woman who not too long before that was best known for chaotic street altercations and reality TV drama, walking out of her boxing debut with a win in front of a real crowd on real pay-per-view under real boxing rules. That's a story arc nobody saw coming. Now let's be real with each other for a second, because the internet had a lot to say about that fight too. Some fans online genuinely respected what they saw, saying she looked technically sound, that she trained the right way, that her coach clearly put in real work with her leading up to that night. Other people weren't as convinced, joking that she must have been getting reps in from unofficial street fights, long before she ever stepped into a sanctioned ring. Either way you slice it though, the woman walked away from that night with a win on her professional record, a real paycheck from a real promotion, and a brand new audience that has nothing to do with Blueface at all. That's the kind of reinvention that's hard to argue against even for her harshest critics. And it's not just boxing either. Chrisean's been working on a pivot toward gospel and faith-based music too, putting out singles built around her relationship with God, talking openly about wanting to change her life and her image. Her single built around her spiritual transformation became something fans started connecting to as the soundtrack of this whole new chapter, bridging the hip-hop world she came from with this more reflective, faith-driven direction she says she's chasing now. She's even gone as far as getting the tattoo of Blueface's face lasered off her body, which, if you know anything about how serious tattoo removal is, that's not a small casual decision. That's somebody trying to physically remove a chapter of their life they don't want attached to their skin anymore. So here we are, Chrisean Rock just turned 26 years old, and the picture is genuinely complicated. On one hand, you got a young woman who grew up with 12 siblings, an incarcerated father, a mother battling addiction, and stretches of homelessness, who clawed her way into millions of dollars through sheer force of personality and reality television. On the other hand, you got a woman who's had to deal with a paternity scandal involving a man who tragically lost his life in the middle of it all, an ex who publicly flip-flopped on whether he even wanted to be a father to her son, her own jail sentence from an assault case, and a financial situation that's gotten so uncertain she's now literally getting punched in the face professionally to make ends meet and rebuild her name. That's not the kind of beyond sad that's about pity. That's the kind of beyond sad that comes from watching somebody's life get picked apart in public, piece by piece, while she's still trying to raise a little boy in the middle of it. Now, this ain't just about one celebrity couple's messy breakup or one DNA test getting questioned online. This is about what happens when reality television takes real people's real pain, addiction, poverty, paternity, grief, and turns it into content for millions of viewers to consume and judge from the comfort of their phones. Chrisean Rock didn't ask to grow up the way she did. She didn't ask for Ronnie Doe to lose his life in the middle of a paternity dispute that the whole internet had opinions about. But she did choose to live almost every part of her healing, her parenting, and now her boxing career, out loud, in front of cameras, for better or worse. And honestly, fam, that's what makes this story so hard to look away from. We watched this girl go from homeless kid to track star, to reality TV artist, to the highest paid villain on basic cable, to a grieving co-parent caught in a national paternity scandal, to a professional boxer with her hand raised in victory, all before she even hit 27. Most people don't live 3 lifetimes by the time they're in their mid-20s. Chrisean's lived about 5, and whether you respect her choices or you think she's brought a lot of this on herself, you can't deny the woman keeps getting back up, over and over, no matter how many times life or the internet tries to knock her down. At the end of the day, Chrisean's situation isn't just about one wild relationship or one controversial DNA test. It's about resilience and about how the same fire that got a homeless kid from West Baltimore all the way to a reality TV empire worth millions can also be the same fire that's now fueling her boxing comeback, one fight at a time. The real question now is whether this new chapter, the gloves, the gospel music, the distance from Blueface, the focus on her son, actually sticks, or whether the cycle of chaos that's defined her 20s so far finds a way to pull her back in. What are your thoughts on Chrisean Rock's situation and where you think her life goes from here? Drop your honest opinion in the comments. And if you want to see more breakdowns like this one, go ahead and click on the next video on your screen, because trust me, this culture never runs out of stories.